Switching over to the B-side of Infest the Rat's Nest, we get the song fittingly titled Venusian 1, which is part 1 to the story of a group of travellers who are forced to leave planet Earth and try to settle down on Venus. As the song goes on, we again see the lyrics that paint the picture of an Earth that is deformed, similar to the images that were described in Planet B, which by now confirms that the Earth has been destroyed by the actions of humanity. That last line of escaping parasites might be a clever link back to the previous song on this album called Superbug, which describes how a powerful bacterial virus has manifested after years of getting stronger against antibiotics and is further threatening the lives of those left on Earth. Interestingly, the bull and the ant from the Easter egg previously mentioned in the Mars for the Rich video game might have something to do with this song, as it's thought that bull ants have the potential to fight off superbug viruses just like those that are described in Superbug. But coming back to Venusian 1, we get an understanding that the travellers are using a spaceship, with the lyrics describing how the outside air will bring them death, almost like they are travelling in the vacuum of space. This mention of floating helium and blimp of freedom further adds to the spaceship imagery, but is also a nice link back to the song Lonely Steel Sheep Flyer from the album Quarters, which might have cleverly foreshadowed this event, as it even shows a picture of a floating helium balloon on the album cover. But as the song ends, we transition into Perihelion, which goes on to tell us what happens to these travellers. The line about man and machine convening could also be a clever reference to what we know will later happen as humankind upgrade themselves to their cybernetic counterparts, and hints at what we've seen in The Visible Face, with the universe being described as a machine, with the video also showing the figures on board the spaceship being swallowed up by it. Once again, we get the familiar themes of humankind choosing to leave planet Earth as we begin our journey to explore space for somewhere new to settle on. But interestingly, the song suggests that the Venusian 1 mission has now turned from being one of colonization into one that is of self-destruction, as in this case, Perihelion quickly divulges to instead describing an apparent suicide mission to travel to the sun and collide into it, which is also why the song is called Perihelion, as the name means the point where the orbital distance is closest to the sun, and thus making it quicker to travel to. But why would these travellers undertake such a journey? Well, as the song continues, it appears they are renouncing their sins, potentially reflecting humanity's guilt for what it has done to the Earth, who now desire to die as martyrs by staring head on to the sun. whose glowing beauty has seemed to have transfixed them with deluded suicidal notions, as the travelers now see the sun as a godlike figure that is the giver of all life and potentially the only one that is allowed to take theirs away.
Solar mountain comes on the Perihelion. No rerouting, only counting till we're done. Shouting sins until we're in the sun. Melting humans and everything they bring. In a blink the sun will drink their things. Raining sun as sinners for dinner.
This feels similar to the Greek mythological story of Icarus, who ignored his father's instructions to not fly too close to the sun, which caused the wax in his wings to melt and eventually led to his death. But could also be inspired by the movie Sunshine, directed by Danny Boyle, which sees a group of travelers sent to save humankind from a dying Earth by restarting the sun, and in their travels become transfixed and mesmerized by its powerful beauty. After the demise of the first group of travellers, we get the song Venusian 2, which tells of another journey to Venus by a second group, and also confirms how the previous group of travellers died in a fiery and explosive collision with the sun. In my view, this song links back to the imagery seen from the music video of Invisible Face, which has 7 figures also travelling inside a spaceship and past a planet that oddly looks familiar to Venus. And since this ties in with Invisible Face, it also connects from what we saw in the song Polygon Wonderland, with the same group of travellers that potentially were looking to start somewhere new and find a land that looks similar to how the Earth looked at the beginning of time, which again fits in with the space exploration themes that come from this album. But what makes this group different compared to the first, and why doesn't Invisible Face fit with what happens in Venusian 1? Well, in my view, although the travellers of Venusian 1 initially started their journey to Venus, we know that they soon became transfixed with the sun, which then saw them set a new course that inevitably led to their destruction. But this isn't the case in Venusian 2, which refrains from mentioning anything to do with the sun, which is the same with the song Invisible Face that also doesn't mention anything to do with the sun. So on top of the connections we've just made to both the lyrics and the music video, to me the link to Invisible Face seems much stronger with Venusian 2 rather than Venusian 1. But to further cement this connection, we can also have a look at what happens to the second group of travellers as they reach Venus and turn towards self-immolation. As they stare into the face of Venus from above, the Venusian 2 travellers offer themselves towards it and decide to jump.
I have gone insane, I lust for volcano, be with molten lava, give me my nirvana. I have no vertigo, I lust for tornado, be a leaf upon air, Venusian This process allows them to achieve self-immolation, which refers to the act of killing oneself for political or religious reasons, and the line auto-cremate means to do so through being burnt alive, which allows the travellers to reach a higher plane of existence, fitting in with the lyrics that describe their craving to reach nirvana as they become martyrs.
Again, this ties in with the themes from The Invisible Face, but also Gamma Knife, of humanity seeking enlightenment and knowledge on how to continue our existence and achieve those aspects on the new human agenda of immortality, happiness, and divinity. But when it comes to the video, we also see that the 7 individuals are seemingly connected as one, since after watching the one figure that stands above them drink from the can of petrol, this action then causes each of them to spew it out, almost like each of their bodies are connected, and importantly, as one of them lights up, they all quickly follow. To me, this is symbolizing the idea that not only all of the Venusian 2 travelers act and feel the same way, as each of them desires to self-immolate and reach nirvana, but also that all of humanity itself is connected, with all of our actions affecting one another, so much so that just like the travelers, we inevitably will descend into self-destruction altogether. A self-destruction that comes as a result of our journey to seek enlightenment, which doesn't lead us towards heavenly paradise that we initially expected, but rather down to the depths of hell. Coming to the conclusion of the album, we reach the final destination for our travellers, the underworld. As indicated by the song's lyrics, the travellers are not entering hell itself, but are actually journeying down the depths towards the entrance as they come across a door made of amber, behind which lies hell. And this to me could be a subtle link back to the song Horology from the album Polygondwanaland, which interestingly mentions how there exists a window to the 9th circle of hell. The 9th circle of hell refers to Dante's Inferno, the first part of an epic poem called the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, which tells the journey of Dante as he's guided by the ancient Roman poet Virgil through the 9 circles of hell. The last circle of which is where Dante finds the large river known as Cocytus, that flows into the depths of hell and leads down to Hades, the Greek mythological god of the dead, otherwise known as Satan himself. Which could be a clever link to how we saw the 7 figures take a leap of faith both literally with self-immolation and figuratively with the visual imagery from the end of Invisible Face as the travellers seem to be falling, potentially descending down through the depths of hell. And since the river is the only pathway to follow to supposedly gain knowledge and reach enlightenment, we again get this nice connection between Dante's Inferno and previous volumes. But most importantly is what we know what lies at the end of this river, which isn't exactly what the 7 figures or humankind initially expected it to be, as instead of heavenly paradise, they are led towards the door to hell. A door that can only be opened by one thing. This to me confirms that Invisible Face fits in with what we've previously noted in Venusian 2 and Self-Immolate, but now also with the song Hell. As just like how the album Nonagon Infinity told the story of 7 travelers who sought knowledge and enlightenment towards how to achieve immortality, and did so by inadvertently opening the door to hell through Nonagon Infinity that unleashed our apocalypse, the B-side of Infest the Rat's Nest also tells a similar tale that builds up to the events during and after Invisible Face, where we see the world change to a colour of red, almost like it's reflecting how hell has been unleashed, which songs Wah Wah and Road Train also confirm that the apocalypse has arrived. Altogether meaning that this album could actually be the prequel to Nonagon Infinity, just like the ending of Polygondwanaland was the prequel to Hantayumi. But as we reach the end of the song, we receive one final call to action for 15 infantry who paratroop into a Perihelion new scene and are told by Satan himself to infest the Rat's Nest.
Infantry paratroop into
While the 15 inventory could represent the number of albums we've received thus far, it could also be referring to other travellers in the future who follow in the footsteps of the Venusian 2 group and decide to join them in hell, which is where they believe they will gain immortality, happiness and divinity. But the call to infest the rat's nest could also have one of two meanings, both of which could go hand in hand. The first being to take revenge or infiltrate the rich that have fled to Mars, who symbolically were just like rats fleeing a sinking ship that was Earth and have left the poor to die on it as they colonize Mars, which they have now made as their new settlement or nest. But the second interpretation derives more from what the term rat's nest means, which is a structure that is unorganized and chaotic, a notion that to me could represent the entire universe itself, not only because the universe is often seen as mysterious and unexplainable, almost like it has no order to it, but also because it can mean a call to infest the universe, which builds upon that instruction to take over Mars and is akin to what happens after Nonagon Infinity with Hantomi's own urge to murder the universe. So perhaps this is our first signal as to why he does so off the back of what Satan has told the travellers, to infest the rat's nest or murder the entire universe, as it could simply mean the desire for humankind to continue spreading themselves as far as possible to extend the survival of our species, to search and occupy everything that there is to know about the universe, and perhaps for them to ultimately find what is the meaning of life. Before this video ends, I want to thank anyone that's ever watched the Gizzverse series, but also give a special mention to the following people who at one point have commented or discussed one of my Gizzverse videos on YouTube or Reddit, because seeing your feedback really does support the making of these videos, so if you see your name on the screen right now, I can't thank you enough, and apologies to anyone that I may have missed. The series was originally intended to be a trilogy, but after reading so many comments wanting for it to continue, we're now up to 6 volumes, which probably wouldn't have been possible if you guys didn't support it. And I say all that without trying to sound like I'm just catering to give people what they want for the sake of getting more views, while I keep milking the proverbial King Gizzard cash cow. I do generally enjoy making these videos, and I want to continue making more. Which also brings me to mentioning that I've now set up a Patreon for this channel, so if you'd like to support the creation of future videos through pledges, now you can. I also know that starting a Patreon for a small channel like this might seem like a strange thing to do, especially since I always thought Patreon was only a place for YouTubers with a large following, but I've come to realize that actually might be backwards thinking, because it's often the smaller channels and those that don't upload regularly that generally tend to put in a lot more time and effort into the quality of videos produced rather than the quantity, which is a principle that I try and follow with this channel. So having a Patreon in that regard makes sense to me, and if I want this channel to get bigger and be sustainable in the future, it's likely that having a Patreon will be essential, especially since every video I make seems to give YouTube's copyright system a heart attack. That's all I'm going to say on that topic for now. Once again, thanks to everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
The song is about being on a spaceship in Venus and jumping onto the surface and turning into a ball of flames.
Is it really?
Yeah.